Hey guys, this is Eric Weingarten with Weingarten Racing. Today's video is I'm not the best, and it's probably something many of you have been wanting me to say for such a long time. Look, I am not the best, and this head here just proved it to me. So this one's got a story with it, and I actually get to share it with you and tell you what I've done. And I have to admit, I am a bit stumped on it, to be quite honest with you. So let me describe what this head is, or how it came to be. Someone watched my YouTube channel, and I'm not for sure if I can reveal the name of the company, so I don't want to give that away. But someone had watched my YouTube channel, and I talked about if you have a head that you've ported and you want me to flow, I'll make a video for it. So it costs $30 to flow the head, $30 for a video, and you can actually show it with your friends, and I'll critique what you've done with your port work. However, many of you think that I'm the absolute guru and all that, and I'm just not. And this would be the prime example, because what this guy had done is he actually has a CNC program for this head. And what head is this? Well, this is an LS3 head. Now I've got my clay on here for flowing, but this is an LS3 head. It's similar to a Liberty casting, which you saw the Liberty casting video, and it's what it is. But it's a little different in the fact that, like, Liberties actually have that extra bolt hole here. This one's similar, like as far as the port design, it's very similar. But there's some little things that are different. I think it's different seat material for sure, it feels like. But anyway, what he had done is he has a CNC program for it, and that's this port. Now, this is how he leaves them. Because what happens is, and you're like, no, it don't look like CNC. It's CNC'd in there. You can see some of the lines. It's probably easier to see on the chamber. But the problem was he was having it where it wouldn't clean up all the way, and he was wanting to know if I could improve the port and then get it to where the CNC machine would clean up more of the area so that you wouldn't have cartridge rolls where they're blending stuff in, which is what you're seeing. So that's essentially what I wanted. But I promise you, it looks like it's hand ported. It's not. You can see the CNC lines here. They just do that to get rid of the casting that would be there. So in other words, instead of it looking like this gray casting in some areas, they just will cartridge roll it. And essentially what they were wanting was, can you improve this? And can you get rid of make it where the program itself will cut more of the aluminum so they don't have to do as much hand touch-up. I was like, no problem. Well, upon first looking at the port, so he had done this one. This one was completely CNC'd off the machine, and I've already redone that one, so I can't show you, but it would show definitely where the shadows were so you get an idea. But this one is the one they pretty much put out. Well, upon initial looking at it, I was like, man, I could beat this thing, no problem. And it should be an easy peasy thing. I didn't even flow it to start off with. So I went to this port first, and I put my 45-degree valve job on there because that's what they do. They're an engine builder, and they don't necessarily want the 50-degree stuff, which is fine. Usually I use 50-degree stuff for most of my race stuff. So I was like, no problem, still can do it. Do my 45-degree stuff, and I spend some time on the port. I'm like, this is gonna kick the crap out of that one. So I put it on the bench, and I'm like, man, that thing looks really good. That's pretty good. And then I flow the stock one, and then I'm like, son of a gun. It beat me at just about every point. So from this port to this port, it was everywhere. So I was like, okay, let me just see if I can't just tweak a little here and there and pick it up. And I'll warn you, if you ever get in this crisis where you're porting a set of heads and you're trying to chase a flow number, typically, and this is what I found, typically if you're trying to chase flow numbers, you're actually not making things better. You're not building a house, you're digging a hole. And I tried to make it a little bit better, and it made it worse. So I was like, man, this is frustrating. So then I started all over. So I ended up doing this port and this port. And I'll show you some of the differences. So this is theirs. I got to show you better off what theirs is. And they've got this ridge here. It looks like the air is hitting it, but it's actually high. So the air just kind of comes off, and there's a little trench here. But it's high. So it's nothing unusual. It looks like it's worse. I don't know how well the camera's definitely not focusing today, but you can see it a little bit there. It looks like it's a ridge that the air is hitting into, but no, that ridge is the other way. So this is above, then it dips down, then you get the chamber. So, but as far as the rest of the port, I mean, I'm doing it this view so you can kind of see the short side, the way it looks. That's how sometimes I get the angles. Like you can see the apex, and then you can see mine. And you can see this one that looks really, really wide short side. And then there's this one. So I knew where this one was screwed. I'd screwed the pooch on this one, so it's left with this port and this port. So on this one, what I did is I gave it way more radius, and I laid it back very, very little. I mean, hardly any. Because on this one, when I tried laying it back more, it really just hurt flow. So what I did is I just made it wider and gave it way more radius. And that's all I'd done as far as that short side. I made the bowl a little bit bigger than this. But on this one, I made the bowl even bigger. And I added just a little bit more width. And still, again, not trying to lay back the short side at all. And then the thing that I did do on both this one and this one was modify the chamber from what they had. Because you can't see it from the picture, but it comes up and then it goes back this way and comes back up. So there's like a dip in there. And so I started measuring because I'm trying to figure out how they're beating me on flow and where the valve is in position with the chamber to see where the area is. And when I put it at 400 valve lift, it was actually my chamber was tight and theirs had a little bit more area, but even then it didn't seem like it had enough. So I dug the chamber in a little bit to give it more area for the air to get out around the valve, and did the same thing with this one. So seems like quite a bit of work, and I'm explaining this because it feels like it really just destroyed me. It's really stumped me, but that's a short side shape that I actually really like that shape. And I like this one too. This one was an abomination. It looks really, really wide. It's laid back. It should move a lot of air. It doesn't. It's horrible. This one, I'm like, I like this absolutely the best. But this one, I like that shape. I really do. And of all of them that I have done, this one's been the best. But it still can't beat the stock one. So let me show you. It can at certain lift points. So bear with me as I'm doing this. I floated on 2 different bores because they actually used this same head. It's an LS3 head on both a 4060 bore, and I only float on a 4030. That's the only bore sleeve I have for that small. But they also use it on 427s, which is a 4.125 bore. So I floated on a 4030 and a 4155 bore. So bear with me on that. I'll show you the numbers. So cylinder 1, I got to make sure I got this right. Cylinder 4 is a stock one. So this is the stock numbers. I really care about 4, 6, and then peak. And if I look at 400, it's 279. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's a fantastic number right there. As I'm telling you this, so far to date, and I have floated I've floated many LS3 heads, and there's a company down in Texas that has a CNC program for this exact head. It don't do that. I have never seen anything else flow more than this besides the AFR head. It's the only LS3 head that has a higher flow number there, period. Then theirs is unusual because they have a bit of an advantage because although the valves moved over away from the wall on these Liberty heads, the AFR's moved over, way over. So it's far unshrouded. But anyway, this is the second highest flowing number I've seen at 400 valve lift of any LS3 head. And I do mean any, and I have seen a bunch. Many I don't do videos for because I don't want to bash anybody or make it feel like I'm bashing some other porting company. I'm just not going to do that. But that's strong. And then if you look at 6, so 4, 5, 6, 348, that's also pretty good. And then peak, we have 372 at 900 valve lift, which I know you're like, oh, I'm never going to get to 900 valve lift. It tells me how stable the port is, and every single one of them, and I cannot figure this out for the life of me. About 750, it does peak, which I recorded some of the 750, but not on this sheet. And then it backs up. And then it starts climbing again. Can't explain it. I'm working on that. I don't have an answer, which I know you're like, you dummy, you should know it all. I don't. This is mine. So what this cylinder 1 right here is, that's this one. This one has got a dip in the center, and it's nice radius. It's not near as big as this one. I shouldn't say that. They're not that far off, but it's not near as big as this humongous one. But anyway, let's look at how it did. So if I'm comparing it to theirs, at 200 valve lift, I'm 162 to a 155. I want to point that out. I'm actually very proud of that number. And I really don't care about those numbers, but let me tell you how good that is. 162 CFM on a 4030 bore. That's more air than typically a big block Chevy with a 2350 intake valve does on a 4625 bore. 228, same thing. That's big block numbers, which, by the way, beats the stock one. Both of these two numbers, 2 and 3, beats the stock. At 4, I'm 275 to the 279. I'm 4 CFM better, and trust me, it was a fight. By the way, this is that big port. So this humongous port, 272. So it's down quite a bit from that. And then this one, the medium port, I guess you could call it, it's 274. So I'm still not getting it, but I'm getting close-ish. Now, I'm beating it at some points, don't get me wrong, but not there. The big port just sucks. This turd of abomination. I think I broke my wrist at the lake, so I'm switching hands. Now at 5, again, that's a tough one. 316, 316, and there's a 322. So although these are totally different shapes, they feel the same at 500 valve lift. And then look at 6. I'm 344, there's 348, and this one's a little bit different. The big port, that one actually flows more at 6. And then at peak numbers, so what I think's the best only does 367. And they're just doing, and then the other one, that humongous bastard port's 369. And same as this other port here. So even though this one's gigantic, it moves the same amount of air as this one, and only one CFM better than that. So I was like, ugh, disgusting, right? And I've been fighting with this for hours. Well, I put them on a big bore, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you. So 5 is the stock on the big bore. So that's this port that they have on a 4155 bore. This one, number 6, I got to look at my notes. Oops. Yeah, 6 is this one, my smaller port, and 7 would be this one. So now things get a little different though. So we have a much bigger bore. Look how much I'm gaining. So I flow almost the same on a 4155 bore as I do the 430. So do they. But I'm, again, both these are up from the stock one. So this is stock. So I'm up there at 200. I'm up at 300. And then we get to 400. They're 287. I'm 286 and 284. So that small port's kind of with it. Now we go to 5. Now we tie 334, 334, and the larger medium port, I should say, 331. Now 6, 364, 368, 364. So now I'm still beating it. Now 7, they're 378, which is a strong number, but I'm 389, almost 390, and 386. And then at 8, 364, 370, 363. So for majority of this on the 4155, I'm better. Now we go to 900 though, 373, 368, 369. So somehow theirs made a comeback at the very end, and it's 375 there and still beating me there. So as far as peak numbers, 389, I'm beating at 7 pretty handily from this part down. But what I cannot figure out is how they're doing it. Because I mean, I've taken measurements and looked at it, and I've put my little velocity probes in there and stuff, and these ports are weird, and I'm fighting with it. I'm probably spending way too much time on this because this is a research and development, just cost you money and time. But I wanted to share that with you, and I know somebody like, this is the most boring video ever. But I want to point out is sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes I cannot figure out stuff. I just got done with this Dragon Slayer, and it's great. And I come to this, and I've done many LS3 heads, one like this, the first one I've ever done. But it's usually like I can beat that, and then I can't. And I'm not saying I'm a god. I'm by far not, but that one kind of stumped me. I still love this. What I really would like to do, and I'm unable to do, would be have this one digitized and this one digitized. And then dyno theirs, this one, and this one. Because yeah, this is flow sheets and all, but they're so close. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 CFM, right? Is that there's other properties in the head that can make more power than just flow. So I'm very curious to see if this one will make, or even this one, end up just destroying it and making far more power, even though it flows slightly less in some areas. Now, it doesn't flow worse in every area. It's definitely better in some. But I wish I had an LS engine and I could get this digitized and this one just dyno and find out. But I want to point that out. Sometimes I really do get stumped, and this would be one. I know some people like to comment and bash others, not necessarily me even, but they do it to me, but they do it to all, where they just have no problem beating a person down. And then in that case, what happens is people just don't admit when they're struggling, and sometimes it just happens, and it's so hard to admit when you're doing something wrong because people just bash you and make you sound like I'm a complete moron. But and I'm not saying I'm not. This one is a little rough. I even tried on this. I tried changing its vane position, because I actually hate that vane position being that way. Like it should be, and you can kind of tell there, it's where it should be. So I tried grinding it off to see if I can improve this abomination port. It it did about the same. Really, it needs a longer one that comes this way, like the mast one, or even the GM. So, for instance, that's a GM LS3 right there. See how its vane is? That's how it should be. So, but if you remove that whole thing, then you end up with that, and it actually made it worse. Well, not worse, but like 2 CFM worse, so not like a huge difference. But longer video, and you probably didn't even care. But point is, sometimes I am definitely not as good as what you think. You guys, thanks for watching. I just thought I'd share one weird thing with you, so you'll know that I am not perfect. You guys take care. Remember, I'm definitely no Superman.